you, Hannah and Eleanor. I think it's always great to see how far one's early stage funders have come. So before we go to the next one, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Lynn. I'm head of platform operations at Visionaries, where I work at the intersection of our portfolio, our LPs, and our broader ecosystem. So I couldn't be prouder to see everyone here today together in this room. But I'm even more excited to introduce the next three individuals, starting with Mehdi Ghissassi, who is the CPO of AI71, where he leads product and engineering teams building AI-powered agents. And he himself is a very active angel investor still, investing into European and US early-stage companies. And he will be joined by Carmen Rico, who is the founder of angel fund Cocoa, investing into European pre-seed and seed founders with angel checks. And they will both be moderated by Gloria Bäuerlein, who is the founding partner of Puzzle Ventures, an angel operating fund, also investing into pre-seed and seed founders. And she herself is a very impressive angel investor herself. And I think there couldn't be a better panel setup for Europe's AI Mafia. So let's give them a round of applause and welcome them on stage.
Hello, everyone. I'm Gloria, and I'm going to try to ask these two beautiful people a couple of tough questions. And I thought the best way to start the session to get to know them a little bit better is for them to tell us more about how they got started with angel investing, how they decided on what to focus, or to focus at all, and how that has changed over the last couple of years for you guys.
Hi, everybody. Super excited to be here. I actually started angel investing by pure serendipity. In fact, it was because a business angel asked me as a favor. I was a partner in a seed fund, and a business angel asked me as a favor, can you please help me to be this founder? And it was a 250K round. And there it went. This founder was Johnny from Hopin, and I helped him put that round together. It was my first angel investment, and I think the aha moment for me was that I realized I was building a very unique relationship of trust with him, and I realized that the reason I could do that was that I was very small in his cap table, and so I started to do lots of angel investments to replicate that, and learned that the gap in a cap table for somebody the size of an angel, but with the insights and network of a VC, was consistent across the board. And that's how I started Cocoa. In terms of what I focus on, or I don't focus on, I'm a generalist. Sometimes I say I have no morals, but the reason is, or the underlying belief is that one thing I've learned in over 9 years in venture is that whether we like it or not, very few people in venture, very few people in the world can build a multi-billion-dollar company, and very few ideas can become multi-billion-dollar companies, and those opportunities that are few can come from everywhere, and so I want to look everywhere, basically.
Yeah, hey everyone, thanks Carmen. Glad to be here. My arrival into the angel scene was very, very different than Carmen's, which seems to be more thoughtful. A friend of mine put my name in one of the scout programs, and somebody called, said, do you want to do this? And I said, yeah, why not? You can give me money to put into companies. So that's how I landed in this space. And over the years, I enjoyed it, so kept on doing more and more with a lot of other friends.
Carmen, you said that you were a VC before. How does your evaluation process, or what you invest in today as an angel, look different from what you invested in as a large VC? Because I think that's really important for founders to understand who they pitch to and what they're looking for and how they're thinking about the world in a very different way.
I think it's one of the key questions that founders should want to understand is what is the model of the money that you're taking, like what are the incentives, how do they think about returns? And I think in terms of what I invest in from an investment thesis perspective, there's not so much difference. The difference is from a fund economics perspective. And so the larger your fund, the more ownership stake you need, right? Whereas because Cocoa is a small fund, I can write a small check and own a small stake in the company and still make the math work. And I think that that's the key difference between a big fund, a small fund, and actually angel investors, individuals, even more so.
And Mehdi, you exclusively invest in AI companies. How do you cut through the hype? And how do you, what do you look for? Is it a technological differentiation? Is it speed of execution? How do you decide on who to invest in?
So the great thing is that everything is AI, right? Some guy wrote software is eating the world a few years ago, and a few months after, actually AI is eating software. So the good thing is exclusively in AI means you can do a bit of everything, which is great. Though you're totally right, there is massive, massive hype, if you want to call it that way, or incredible interest and excitement for what this technology can deliver. And so the way that I've tried to approach it is to think about, well, first the team, right? Who is the team? What are their credentials? Where do they come from? What have they done? And is it specific to the area that they're going into? And then the second level is the idea. What are they actually working on? Is it a good or bad idea? Not that I know if it's good or bad, right? But at least can you understand how they landed on that space? And then the third level is what advantage do they have, right? As you can see, everybody can build an LLM. And if you build it after the other guys, it costs you orders of magnitude less. So you have to think about what is the critical thing that this group has. And then maybe the last thing is what can I add to their journey, right? Why would they have me in that? So yeah, there is a certain amount of hype, but I think just like you'd look at fintech companies through a lens of do they understand the space, you look at these AI groups with the lens of do they know what they're doing, and can they attract more people to that, and is it a team that has the knowledge and gravitas to execute?
I think that, to me, the biggest impact that AI has had in how I look at companies is that I've always been quite concerned about competition, but now it's critical, right? And so since AI, I'm even more focused on the uniqueness of what somebody is building. And it's of course, I like to say I back unique founders with a unique insight building unique products. But the reason being that if you think about a world in which capital is already a commodity for the best founders, AI is commoditizing a lot of the execution. It's what are you left up until you get scale and the mode of scale? What do you have? What's your edge? What's your initial mode? And so I think a lot more about uniqueness than I used to because of AI.
With AI, the market has gotten incredibly competitive, and entry valuations have been skyrocketing. I think we've talked about it. Sometimes it's even hard for us to still invest at pre-seed stages. How do you think in that context, how has your focus or approach changed? And how has also the role of angels changed? Especially your relationship with other investors, with the multi-stage funds now investing at inception stage. There's nothing there. There's just two people with an idea. How has it changed the way you're approaching things?
I think it's a little bit the same as I was saying earlier. Founders should know the game and the incentives of the money they take. We as investors need to be very clear on what game we're playing, because these multi-stage large funds or large seed funds, they play a complete different game, right? And so a good deal for them might not be a good deal for me. A good deal for Cocoa might not be a good deal for them. And you just need to know very clear what game you're playing and how you play that game. And sometimes you will coincide in the same deal, and sometimes you won't. And so I think that question I get a lot. I get two questions generally. It's oh, how do you get your allocation? Are you all not competing together? And two, I always say my problem is not the allocation. I never have a problem. We don't compete that much, we collaborate. It's the high entry prices that we need to solve for, because the funds have got very large. They don't care about how much money they put to work. They only care about how much percentage they own, and that translates into a big round, a big valuation. And for us, that doesn't work. And so I think what that forces you is to be more creative. And so is to, A, go earlier right? And many times build conviction before, so like you need to be right and find inefficiencies before others find them. And then also just think of fund economics, taking those numbers into account, and be very clear that your fund return or threshold need to work in a world in which $20 million valuations are normal.
But it's really funny because a lot of people think when you say you're a collaborative seed fund or an angel fund, everyone thinks like you're just waiting for the tier 1 funds to give them a term sheet and then just chime in. It doesn't work like that. Like, I've made 10 investments in the last 10 years, and in the last 2 years, and one was an introduction by the lead investor, and no one else saw that deal in the market because the founder is an LP in that fund. So that deal, or that company, no one else saw. But other than that, you have to be there very, very early. You have to find founders that are like in the middle of nowhere that probably no one really knows yet, that are ideating. Because otherwise, we're completely at the grace of the multi-stage funds. And it's just never going to work. You're never in like control of your destiny.
And to be honest, like it's much more fun. Also, at the end of the day, you need to find inefficiencies. And if like somebody is a top operator from a top scale up and is raising 10 at 50 and they have term sheets, like it's great that we see it. It's our job to see it, but it's not the investments that are going to return our funds. So.
And Mehdi, I mean, you are investing from both STEM AI as well as from the Atomico Angel program. Do you care at all about entry valuations, competitive markets, your allocation that you're getting, etc.?
Yeah, look, the folks that know this way better than I do say you don't really care about the entry point because if it succeeds, it's going to return like way, way, way more, right? However, I'm not sure if it's true or not, actually. Sometimes I wonder about this. And it's what Carmen was saying of the inefficiencies, right?
So, this is great. So let me run you. I agree that, of course, if we bet that, like, if the company is a winner, as a massive winner, fine. But the difference is the following. So if you have, let's say, like $20 million fund, and you end up with like 2% at exit, because when you enter, you hit 5%. Okay, a $1 billion company is a fund returner. Okay, we can see $1 billion companies. Okay, if I have 1% at exit, that same company needs to be $2 billion. But if I have 0.10% at exit, because I came at some crazy price, that same company needs to be $20 billion company. And so, do I believe that there are going to be $20 billion companies? Hopefully, sure. But you can't bank your fund returns on that. So the fact that the entry price doesn't matter, like, is relative to the fund economics. So I think that that's the...
It doesn't until it does.
Exactly.
It's like, it doesn't matter whether it's 10% higher or not.
Probability.
But I mean, we are seeing, it's very common for me to see pre-seed rounds getting down at 100 post. Like if it's 10 times as high of an entry price than the usual pre-seed round, at some point I'm like, okay, is it 10 times going to be worth 10 times more? Hard.
That's the other way to look at it exactly, is that the same company needs to be like 10 times bigger for you to make the same money. So that's one. And the other side, to be honest, which is the boring, like unsexy side, is like, is a $20 million, 100 million post the healthiest setup for a company that has no product or nothing? It might be, but it might not be. And the incentives like there of who needs to deploy money into what play. So it's just kind of, I always think also about, do these founders know how to put this money efficiently to work? Because if not, it's just added pressure.
So with the pre-seed stage getting more institutionalized, with like the multi-stage funds investing at pre-seed, especially with experienced founders, and with the seed funds getting larger and larger, how would you recommend founders to decide on the syndicate, on the round composition? Like who should they get on board, and when should they talk to the different folks? Should they try to get angels on board first and get them committed and then help them talk to the lead investors? Or do you get a big, large lead investor in first, and then they help you get the angels on board?
Yeah, there's probably not like a cookie cutter approach to this and the one size fits all, right? I think it depends on what that founder, team of founders or company actually needs at that space, right? And in general, it's probably better if you have optionality. Like you can pull on different people to help you figure out different problems that will happen in your journey. So I think it's better for the founders to think about what do they actually need, because money they will find a bit anywhere if they're good, but the other value-added things that they need in their journey are much harder to come by.
Totally agree. And from an round execution perspective, I typically recommend founders to focus initially on getting a lead because followers follow. And so if you have a lead, then you have much more optionality also on choosing your followers. One thing that I'm not sure founders know is when you reach out to an investor and cold or warm, do not say, I've got X amount in followers, but I'm missing a lead, because that is not strong signaling. And so the power of a lead to build the momentum into a round is very strong. And so from an ROI perspective of time devoted to that, I think founders should focus on getting a lead and then build the rest of the round together. That's me.
There's a bit of a controversy around whether operators or founders are the better angel investors. I mean, you've done more like the finance route, you've always been an operator. And I think I found a quote by Tavid from Plural, former founder of Wise. He says, you want someone with serious scar tissues, not someone who spent their lives looking at spreadsheets. So what is it? What's the right what's the right background of an angel investor, and why is probably one a different perspective from the other?
Yeah, I think it similarly depends on what the founder needs. Like everybody can add value to somebody's journey, right? Some can help with the product side of things, others with go-to-market, introductions, organizing your team. Others can actually help with the financial journey, right? This, exactly the stuff Carmen was now saying. If you haven't been on that side of the table, you probably wouldn't know, right? So yeah, I've seen angels on cap tables that come from all walks of life. And if they're there, it means that the person who added them thinks that they can add enough value. So if it's specifically to the angel, if your question is it better to be operator or investor to be an investor, it's probably a different answer, but for angel, I think both can be equally.
I couldn't agree more. I don't think it's either or. I believe that there's no data supporting that either or is better either. From a picking perspective, I'm never shy to say, I don't think you can say you're a good picker at pre-seed. I think investors, operators or financial background, but they can have a good nose and they can make good decisions consistently. But the number of uncontrollables that will determine the outcome is so big that there's no way any of us can sort of forecast that. And so I don't think that either being an operator or an investor makes you a better picker. Second, I don't think from a value add, I think Mehdi said all that there was to say. I just want to add that we should tell Tavid that you and I do have some scars. So I have some serious scar tissue built from starting Cocoa. So I think we qualify as both.
True. When you look into the US, the type of investors that have been the most disruptive over the last 5 years is probably the large solo GPs. Elad Gil, Nat Friedman, etc. Those are definitely the players in the market that the top tier 1 funds are really scared of. Do we need an Elad Gil in Europe? And if so, is it even feasible to be a solo capitalist and raise hundreds of millions or billions of dollars like he did?
See, there are these guys like Elad and Nat Friedman and others who almost out of nowhere are able to lead massive rounds, right? I guess in the US, the supply is incredibly big. It's supply and demand also, right? And so perhaps that helps to differentiate and have, if you're Elad, you've worked at Google and you've started one company that got acquired by Twitter, and then you started another one that is a unicorn, and you're very deep into the ecosystem in the Bay Area, and you've built this. There is a different feel to how you interact with founders than if you're some other tier 1 VC that's incredibly structured and great. So yeah, I think in Europe, do you really need this? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Like you can. I'm not sure what problem it's solving for the current state of the European VC landscape.
I'll make a very quick reflection on this. I think the main key difference to me between Europe and the US, like I believe Europe has exceptional talent, but the US is a better place to build a business, and it's a better place to build a business because if you go to SF, you realize that both investors and founders live in a collective delusion, like complete delusion. But there is money to fuel that delusion, to your point on the big solo GPs, and the learning that we should sort of capture in Europe from a mindset perspective is that more things happen in the world when you think everything's possible and you put money behind it. Not everything happens because the laws of physics are the laws of physics, but more things happen. And so in that sense, whatever is the mindset of putting more capital to back everything's possible would be better for Europe. And we have some great LPs in the room that should try to make an Elad Gil of $1 billion solo GP fund possible in Europe.
Thank you so much. And yeah, very good outlook for Europe, and I think also for the early stage ecosystem, which has definitely become a lot more professionalized over the last couple of years. And hopefully more angel investors are going to join us that are like ex-founders, ex-operators, and that basically want to give back to the community. And I think especially what I see sometimes missing on that is that a lot of people usually invest locally. I think what I've seen, which could make a tremendous change or difference in the European ecosystem, is if we finally get to a point where a Swedish operator is helping a founder in Paris build their business and probably also expand into the Nordics, etc. Because I don't really see that. When you're looking at the cap tables and when you're looking into who the angels are, it's mostly locals, and I think we definitely have to change that.
Thank you.
Thank you.